Let's go. I was selling a $9,500 offer and I kept getting blocked by the same money objection. That's a lot of money. I can't afford it. Can you follow up in 6 months? And every time it would happen, I would think, what did I miss? Did I not build enough value? Could I have pushed harder? So I would go back and I'd review my calls and I would make adjustments and then get on the next call, but the same money objection would still come up. Then I got to this point where I was so fed up that I just had to get that objection off of my calls forever. And I'll talk about what I did. My name is Jay Magpantay. I've closed over $14 million in deals throughout my sales career. And now I run Jumpify Labs, where I help high-ticket closers make more money without necessarily getting better at sales. And today I'm going to show you the exact document that I built that made the price objection almost, not quite 100%, but almost disappear from my calls entirely. Because guess what closers do when they run into the same objection? The obvious answer is they practice. Right? More role plays, they try new reframes, they objection handle with their teammates. And yeah, that stuff definitely works. I'm not saying it doesn't, but also here's what really nobody thinks about. When prospects get price the first time on a Zoom call, they have to process that new information in real time while the clock is ticking, while you're there watching their face, and while also you're trying to look calm and not let them smell that commission breath coming out from your mouth. This isn't necessarily a skill problem. It's more of a systemic problem because the money objection is not happening because you really said anything wrong. It happens because prospects are forced to process key information, something that's super relevant to the buying decision. They're doing this right on the spot when they feel the pressure of having to make a decision. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned sales rep or not. This is something that anyone can relate to because you already know there's been times where you've had a friend look into, let's say, a weekend getaway with your homies. They look into different events. They talk about how much fun you're going to have, but then all of a sudden they tell you it's going to cost $2,000 a person. If that's not in your budget, then you're going to feel awkward, right? So what would be more helpful in that situation is if you had some kind of idea of what you're going to be asked to spend before your friend went into research mode. So I know what you might already be thinking, but Jay, if you're saying that I should show price up front, isn't that going to scare people away? And yeah, that's exactly the point. If someone's going to be shocked by a $9,500 investment, for example, that shock happens no matter what. You're just choosing whether it happens before the call or live on a Zoom call with you after you've already invested 45 minutes of your energy into discovery, into problem probing, solution selling, and all the things that we do on a call. But scaring away the wrong prospects is not exactly a loss. It's more of a filtration. Anyway, here's what I did. So I was tired of getting the money objection on every call. So instead of getting better at handling it real time and being an objection handling wizard on the call, I created a Google Doc. Now, it's not fancy. Again, it's just a Google Doc. It just had text. And in that doc, I put the investment range, okay? I said directly that our programs range anywhere from $2,500 all the way up to $15,000. And then I added something that most closers wouldn't. I told them that if the level of investment didn't feel aligned with them right now, that it was completely okay, but that they could also cancel the call. In fact, they should cancel the call. Now, most closers won't do this because typically we usually want every call that lands on our calendar. But yes, some people did cancel. But also, the people who did show up, they weren't having to process price for the first time. They already had some inclination that they were having to invest some form of high ticket. And what happened was that my calls, they got cleaner, they got shorter, and prospects showed up a tad bit more decisive. And after starting to send out the Google Doc, I became the number 2 on a team of 6 closers on that offer in just my second month of being on that offer. And that didn't happen because I got better at handling the money objection. I just stopped letting that objection make it to the call in the first place. So the Google Doc I described, that's the prospect primer. You send it to every prospect that books a call with you. And just a reminder, it's Google Doc, okay? It's not a VSL, it's not a sales page, it's not a 47-page PDF that nobody reads. Again, just a clean document that you send personal, one-to-one. And what it does is it does 3 things. First thing it does is it informs them about what your program, whatever you're selling, it talks about the different stages, the different phases, and what's actually required out of them. So it talks about the commitment, it talks about the price range, and that way there's just no surprises on the call. The second thing it does is it also pre-handles objections. Now, it's not going to eliminate every single objection because Conversations are chaotic and objections can look like a million different things, but it handles the most common ones that you get. So this is something that you learn over time, and that's something that you also add into the doc as well. The third thing it does is it filters, because people are going to opt out of the call, but the people that stay and actually go through with the call, they're more inclined to actually make a decision. Let me show you what this actually looks like. So this is the actual primer that I used to sell for the offer that was $9,500. And I want you to take a look at how it's structured. So the first thing is it starts with a personal note, not corporate, not stiff. It's human to human messaging from me to them. And it's actually designed so that this feels a lot less like marketing. Okay. And then it goes into details about what's in the program. Again, all the things that they go through when they're in the program. So what's the expectation out of them? What's their commitment level? And all the phases and all the little micro transformations that happen through each stage. And then it goes into who this is for. But most important, it also goes into who it's not for. So what this is doing is it's actually filtering people before you get on the actual call itself. Then it goes into the investment. Now, in this example, I gave a range because we had different offers and different price points. I also wrote about why it's worth it and what they get out of the two different ones. Then I go into the results from the program. So the results are really important to see because, of course, everyone wants proof that this actually works. And then there's the FAQ. So the FAQ is where you can actually pre-handle most of those objections that happen on your calls. So all the objections that, well, again, not all, but a lot of the objections that your prospects can possibly have, they are pre-handled before the call at their own pace without you needing to be a wizard on the call and having to battle all the different objections that come up. So by the time they hop on Zoom, they've already read the price, they've seen the results, they've had their objections pre-handled, and they've decided that, at least at this point, that they're still interested, okay? So now you're having a completely different conversation. And I've shown this to other closers, and a lot of them have said that, this is not something I could do. This is not my funnel. I don't control what prospects see before the call. And yes, that's completely true. You might not control the advertising. You might not control the landing page or the emails, but you definitely control what happens when somebody books, because that's your cue to actually spring into action, right? That's like the bat signal, and you're Batman, and it's your time to step in. Your income actually depends on what happens on the call. So you start to take ownership of what happens once they book. Now, if the team is in control of the top of funnel marketing, you pretty much own the middle and the bottom of the funnel marketing because you're the closer. You're the one that creates the conversion. And elite closers are not going to hide behind that's marketing's job or this is not my funnel. They're going to build leverage where they can. And if you're worried as well that your company won't let you do this because they don't want you to set your own marketing, you position it as something that you're doing to increase show rate and to increase your close rate. Just test it. Bring the data on 10 calls because most teams are going to care about revenue, right? And when you show them that this increases revenue, that initial resistance they have to it, it's just going to go away. And if they still have it, then you'll have learned something important about where you're building your career. So here's what actually happens when this system is running. So a friend of mine, I'll keep him and his offer quiet because he's still using this as a secret weapon. When he was on a new offer selling to high net worth prospects, he had limited time on calls, mostly because his prospects were busy. Now, the offer itself was a tax offer, which had a lot of complexity in it. There was calculation, computation, and his calls would start to run overtime just on presentation alone. Then, when he was finally dropping price, prospects had to process that information in real time. So he'd get a lot of, okay, cool, let me just process this. Let me think about it. And that doesn't also sound too far-fetched because he's dropping a $20,000 price tag on them and expecting them to buy after just talking for 45 to 60 minutes. So we built him a prospect primer. Again, nothing flashy, just a document. And as I said, his offer was pretty complex. So we did need to supplement that with a Loom video that showed people how to use the calculator. Once we deployed those two things, his next call, $20,000 paid in full on the first call with no objections. Also within 30 minutes. That call didn't close because he suddenly became a good closer. He actually changed nothing about his sales process. He closed it because the prospect already showed up, knowing the offer, understanding what commitment was required out of them. They knew the price clearly because he straight told them it was $20,000 and all the objections were pre-handled and they just ready to go. Okay, so that's what the prospect primer does. Now, before I end this video, I just want to wrap by saying that a lot of closers will say that this sounds great, but building this seems like it's a lot of work. It's actually not. I just showed it to you, right? You're not rebuilding the whole entire marketing team's funnel. Again, you're not building a VSL. You're making a Google Doc. It's just one that outlines the offer, it gives the range of the investment, and it's a doc that pre-handles most of the frequent objections that keep showing up on your calls. And if you know your offer, if you have a good understanding of what's important to your prospects, you can have your prospect primer ready in about 20 to 40 minutes or so. Here's what I want you to take from this. The money objection isn't necessarily a sales problem, okay? It's more of a timing problem because prospects don't say no because your offer is not worth it. They say no because they're hearing price for the first time at the worst possible moment, which is live on Zoom under pressure with you staring right them at the face. So just move that information, that one little bit of information, move it to before the call. Let them process that on their own time and then see what happens live on the call itself, okay? Using this system, it'll outlast your performance. You won't have to be a wizard on every single call. You just rely, again, on the system. Now, if you want the exact primer that I used, the one that I just showed you on screen, the one that pre-handles price, commitment, slew of objections before you got on the call, I'll send it to you for free. Just go to jumpifylabs.com/stack, drop your name and email. I'll send it to your inbox. And then you can model my primer, change it for your offer, and have your own version ready again 20 to 40 minutes or so before your next call. The link is in the description below. By the way, if you like videos like this, if you want to rely more on systems versus your own performance on a live Zoom call, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.